Welcome back, everyone, to the Miss Art World podcast. I am your host, Catherine, with my co-host, Samuel.
What is up, Art World? Welcome back. Brand new year, too. Is this our first one for the new year?
No, because I'm a terrible person and just put up our recap of Basil and Satellite.
Those were so long ago.
I know, but I'm a busy person, okay? So this is technically our second, but our first with an artist who we have Jessica E Blinkhorn with us. And I must say, Jessica, that I think you're one of the highlights that Samuel and I came back with from Miami. Like we were so excited. Yeah. I think both of us talked to you at different times and we both came back and we're so excited about meeting you and seeing your work, and just you were so spunky and fun to talk to, and you meet a lot of artists.
It's funny. That is actually my dad's nickname for me. It's been Spunker since I was 2 years old. Back when I was able to walk, I was always into everything. So Dad started calling me Spunker. And I actually have Daddy's little Spunker tattooed on my arm.
Oh,
it's kind of funny that you would use that word.
It fits. It's so delightful to meet you, and you're just like, hey, I'm here. I'm doing my artwork and I'm not going to apologize for it. And I really thought that you were just so much fun to talk to.
Well, thank you. And I have to say, I've followed your work for many years. I want to say 3 to 4 years I've followed your work on Instagram. And I really like the juxtapositioning that you use with the exterior world and the interior world, and how you have all of these surrogates that are, installed with your work, and your use of the visual is really dramatic and poignant. And I don't know, the installation at Art Basel for a Performances Live at Satellite Art Show was really, really beautiful. Extremely beautiful.
Thank you. Let me read a little bit about you and then we'll just dive right in. So Jessica E Blinkhorn is a Atlanta-based interdisciplinary artist. Her work advocates for the LGBTQ plus, disabled, and aging communities. She uses a power chair and focuses her work on acceptance through acknowledgement of differences, body positivity, disabled education through experience and exposure of, reading's hard. Disabled education through experience and exposure, human sexuality, and storytelling. And so if someone's looking you up right now, what's the best place to go? Is it your Instagram or your website?
I'm actually on my Instagram a lot. I keep my website up and I try to update it as much as I remind myself to update it, because I hate doing it so much. But I try to update that every 3 to 6 months with new information and new shows. But I'm not really on there. That's mainly for when I apply for jobs, just so they have a full, a full catalog of what I've done, like my CV just right there. But I'm on Instagram a lot. So if people want to start following me on Instagram, that's what receives the most activity in my life. I'm not TikTok ready yet.
No, you're not TikTok. I was just about to
ask. I don't understand it. It's so annoying because I want to do all these really cool videos. I'm I don't know how to do them, and I don't have people to help me do them. So I'm all right, what can I do myself? So it's basically a lot of that, I hate to say this, kind of vain, staring into the camera and I don't know.
That's pretty much what TikTok is, though. But TikTok's a little more dangerous because once you get into it and they figure out your algorithm, then you're just scrolling through all the videos and you can't seem to pull yourself away. So if you have a problem with Instagram already with being on it too much, then TikTok's even worse.
Oh man, every morning is TikToks and coffee. That's what I do every morning. I sit on the toilet and I drink my coffee and watch TikTok. That's probably TMI, but I'm kind of known for that. It's part of my charm, I think.
Your morning sounds a lot like my morning.
Same.
TikToks and coffee. We're just like, and then eventually once the coffee's gone through you, got to go to the pot.
And while you're there, you might as well TikTok some more.
Exactly. So Jessica, if anyone had listened to the podcast before, we've talked about your performance art, and your performance art in Basel was where you were in the chair and you had two empty chairs. And then it was, to me, when I was there, and we kind of talked about it a little bit, but it was like the interaction, and you weren't necessarily interacting with the public, but the public was interacting with you, where they were just like, you had the space and all they had to do was like walk around you. But there were so many people that just kind of like walked through that art space.
Yeah, so the performance that I presented at Art Basel is part of a performance that I've been working on for about 2 years. I think I started it right before the pandemic is when I first came up with the idea. And going into the pandemic, it really kind of hit home, you know, just the urgency of my community and how our voices were kind of being snuffed out, and we were kind of left in the distortion of what was going on in the world when everybody else is up in the microphone screaming their story, no one's listening to ours. And I really got involved in like self-advocating during this time. When I was younger, it was like, oh, I'm cool, I can make do, it's not a big deal, the wheelchair's not a big deal, disability is not a big deal. But as you get older and you become more disabled, it's a big damn deal. It's a huge deal, you know? So I started like, during the pandemic, that was my reset moment in my life. And I came up with Reverence We Three. And so what Reverence We Three is it's a performance series that's meant to take place across the American landscape and visit cities with roots in the civil rights movements, and go into these cities through, you know, the feed from Instagram followers and get their opinions on what's the most inaccessible place in their city. And then I would set up kind of like a tribute site. It's myself as the object of reverence to serve as a reminder of what is and what will be for the majority of the society. And I'm joined by two empty wheelchairs, which represent my sister and my brother who have passed, and those who have passed are those who fight and continue, those who have fought and continue to fight for inclusion, equity, and equality in the disabled aging communities. People come for 3 hours and they bring flowers, placing them in or around the performance area in the wheelchairs. They can come back, and then they, at the end of the 3 hours, we pull all the petals from the flowers into the performance space to refocus the necessity for inclusion, and to remind people that they could quickly be in my position. During my performance, you'll notice I wear a big headdress. And a lot of people are like, well, why do you wear the headdress? Why do you wear the mask? You know, I wear the mask because, you know, COVID. The headdress I wear because if you notice, there are little pieces of mirrors in my headdress. And that is meant to cue the viewer that they could be in my position. You know, I'm a reflection of their impending future. And I think that that's what we need to be reminded of when you come across people from the disabled community. We don't need your sympathy. We don't need to hear we're an inspiration. We need your empathy. We need your advocacy. We need your allyship. And we need you to also remember that just as quickly as stepping out your front door, you could be sliding right into my position.
Mm-hmm.
That was a very long-winded response, but you know, one thing I did by setting up outside of the satellite performance show was just, I liked when people walked around me, but when they walked through me like I didn't exist, that further just frustrated me, because it actually is part of the narrative, how you only really pay attention to us when it serves a profit margin, mm-hmm. or some sort of need to feel superior or better about yourself. Otherwise, you just kind of avoid us. You kind of just pass by us like we don't exist. It's too hard to look. It's too hard to accept. It's too hard to acknowledge. I like to put myself in people's faces. I always have. because I'm not afraid of who I am.
The one thing that I noticed with your performance there was the people that there's two groups of people. The one that kind of walked around, and the people that walked around tended to be by themselves or like an older couple, and they would steer clear or like see what was going on, or like a younger person would definitely walk. All the younger people walked around. They were way more respectful. But when you had like a person between the ages of like late 20s and like 40, they tended to walk through, and if they had a kid, kids with the stroller, they always walked through. Like I saw so many people with big strollers, and instead of like walking around with the strollers, they just like powered through. And there was only one time that this lady like pushed your stroller almost like into you to try to like get you to move. It was nuts.
Yeah, and I actually held my ground toward the last few minutes of the exterior performance, where this man, and I felt so bad. I really did. I need to stress that I felt so bad, but for the integrity of my work and what it was saying, I had to hold fast my position. But this man went with his child and went to go in front of me to where I'd have to back up to the edge of the sidewalk, and he'd have to go between my foot plate and the wall of the building. And he's kept saying, excuse me. And for like a minute, he sat there waiting for me to move. And I was like, no, excuse you, because I realize you have a child. I realize you have a stroller. I'm not being, I'm not trying to lack compassion for that. But I'm also thinking my dad and my mom, who had no services when we were children, used to lift us inside of our wheelchairs up into a little Volkswagen bus van every time we wanted to go somewhere. Not one, not two, but 3 wheelchairs or little strollers. He would lift them up and put them in there. So in that moment, I was like, no, you can go around. If my dad did this, if my mom and dad did this their whole life, you can take a minute to go around my installation.
And going around you was not even that big of a deal, because literally 5 steps either way, there's a ramp that went literally down into the huge, it wasn't like a little bike lane, it was a huge
big
bike lane. And the bike lane had pillars that divided the street, like the cars from the bike lane, which was nuts. So all you had to do is take 5 steps back, go in the bike lane, walk down this huge bike lane, and go right back up on the sidewalk. But people, especially in the strollers, refused to do that.
Yeah, it was frustrating. It was for sure frustrating. So toward the end of the performance, I was like, you know what? You want to invade my space, I'm going to invade your space. So I took all of the flowers and then I strolled around, weaving in and out of traffic in front of the performance area, kind of being a little bit of a disturbance or a nuisance, because you're not going to deny my presence. You're not going to ignore me. I absolutely refuse that. Now more than ever, as I age, it's more important that you know that I'm here, and that you know that you could be right next to me in a wheelchair, on a walker, with crutches, with filling or without, with breathing apparatuses or without. Anything can happen at any moment, and we have no control over our lives. We have this illusion that we have control. But ultimately, do we? We can control what we do in our everyday lives, but we have no control over how the outside world will interject itself. So our concern for control is just a facade for our lack of understanding of self, for our own fragility. Yeah, I get really frustrated when I see people just treat others like they don't exist. Because no one wants to feel that way.
So this is your newest project, right?
This is the one that I'm building, and I'm trying to get shown all over the United States. I would love to go international with it. I don't know if any of you know, I don't know if either of you know of an artist from the disabled community, performance artist from the disabled community who passed away. I want to say it was 4 years ago. Catherine Arignello, beautiful performance artist, was this personality with a crooked smile and this flame red faux hawk, bouffant-esque 80s, you know, Cure hairstyle. And she would oftentimes use the inspiration factor or the sympathy factor that society throws in our face as a way to poke and prod and just mess with them. I draw a lot of inspiration from that performance artist because there was just so much fearlessness. I would like to see how my work would translate overseas, where individuals with disabilities actually have a little bit more of a chance to have comfortable lives that are more autonomous than we do in America. To be honest with you, one of my biggest fears is why ending up in a nursing home with no one around me, because the state won't pay for my care, and that is a fight. Even just to live in my own apartment, to get my care, to get the hours that I need, it's a fight. Every year is a fight to find caregivers that will work for the amount of money that the abysmal and disrespectful amount of money that the government gives me to pay them. It's a fight. And so this performance is like a bill into an examination of my life up to date and how I've been able to exist in a society that doesn't recognize my value and doesn't want to reassess itself to integrate my community in further. I also do a secondary side project that is more adult, is what I like to say, because one of the other tragedies to I don't want to say tragedy in a very, very tongue-in-cheek way, because people are like, oh, you poor thing. One of the tragic parts of being an individual with a disability, other than feeling like you don't fit into society and they don't really want you to sometimes, is they don't want to see that you're a person and that you like sex and that you're sexual and that you're sexy. And I like to display that. I like to show it off. I like to make people feel very uncomfortable, because it forces them to ask themselves, why am I so uncomfortable with this? Why? I do a little side, more adult performances, like they're called sex talks. It's basically me making people feel very uncomfortable, which I have to admit I love to do. I absolutely love to, because people either want to infantilize us or fetishize us, and they want to do it in secret. It's like, I know I'm fine. I don't know why you have to hide me away. You should be like lucky that I wouldn't even give you a shot at this.
Can you explain a little bit more, like what the performance is with the sex talks?
I've only done the sex talk once, because right now I really do want to focus on the more advocacy and social inclusion part of my work. But the sex talk performance has been done once. I would like to build on that once I get more funding. I applied, as you know, I'm sure, applying for grants is a love and a hate thing for artists, because back in the day, we were rock stars, man. We were court painters. People wanted us in their house. They wanted us doing things for them. And now it's like we have to fight to pay our bills unless we have people that latch on to our work. And we need to stomp out elitism in art. That's all I'm going to say about that. But to answer your question, I've only done the sex talk one time, and I actually got injured. My roommate's boyfriend stabbed me during it. It was the funniest thing. I'm laughing now because he's the nicest guy. He's been one of my friends for years, and I actually met my roommate through him, so he's always over here. But I did the sex talk performance at a brewery in Atlanta called Sabbath Brewery. If you're ever here, best sour beer, hands down, fantastic.
Ooh,
Um,
I do love sour beer.
it's pretty damn good. I don't like beer, but I will drink a Sabbath sour beer like now. Anyway, so I came out in my headdress and my mask, and I came out to Nine Inch Nails Reptile. And I was wearing, and the reason I chose Reptile is because, it's about shedding the skin and owning one's, sexual being, and just a whole bunch of that, and I was wearing this all white dress. And then I rolled up to people and I moved my chair to the music. And I gave people a pair of scissors, and I asked that they cut into my dress. Obviously taking a cue from Miss Yoko Ono and cut. But it revealed a tease underneath. So the first person I go to is my best friend's or my roommate's boyfriend, which is one of my friends. And he's like nervous, I when you're performing and you need audience interaction, you always kind of put patsies in the audience. Your friends tell them what to do to kind of lead it off. I told him what to do, and he was so nervous. He's trying to cut, and his hands are shaking. And like, I have this spot on my foot that's a scar, and the scissors caught the dress and slid past the scar and popped my skin open. A good 2 to 3 inches, popped it open.
Oh,
and
no.
So I'm going around and I'm like, oh, that hurt. I felt the stab, and I was like, I'm okay, whatever. And then like, but people are like cutting my dress off, and underneath my dress I have all this lace see-through nightie, and like, no, I don't even think I was wearing. I was wearing boy shorts because I didn't want to like, I didn't want to expose people too much. I didn't want to terrify them just yet. So I'm like, got this lacy nightie on, and like, the song changes to Boy Harsher, Your Body Is Nothing, which I wanted that because it's like, people treat me like I'm nothing, but I am this very sexual person, and I own my sexuality and I relish in it. So like, I had my friend come up and choke me, and I had another friend come up and rub me, and I would like grab people from the audience and tell them to do things. The music goes out, of course, there's always a hiccup. And so I have to start talking to the audience. Luckily, I love to talk, as you're learning right now. And, my friend is sitting there, and my friend's like rubbing all over me. And, she goes and sits down. Another girl comes up and is like, can I rub your feet? And I'm like, sure. And she's like, are you okay? And I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. She goes and sits down. And then later on, like, I'm doing a live transfer from my wheelchair onto a couch to where I can ask, or I can answer questions from the audience, because I want them to see like what it takes for me to go from one place to the next. And so as I'm getting the sling on me, I'm like, guys, if you have blood on you, I'm sorry. At that moment, I noticed my foot plate was filled with blood. My dress had this huge red spot. My foot was like still bleeding. It bled for like an hour and a half after the performance. Luckily, my friend who's an EMT was there and did triage after the performance, but I came home and like, I told my friend, I was like, you did it. And he's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I was like, oh, it happens. It's just, it made the performance more interesting, I guess. But
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What's the performance you did? Because I was going through your website. You have one where it's like 2 women. I think
oh God,
actually
you're
there's
gonna ask.
3,
Oh, no.
and then you have the nipples clamped to them. Are they being electrocuted? Because it looks like it's you're electrocuting.
It's funny. Nipples. That performance is still talked about to this day in my city. And one of my friends came up to me at this restaurant and was like, hey, that performance, I have to tell you, because she was the one that curated it. She goes, TJ Miller contacted iDrum because he wanted to use our space because he happened to walk in and he saw your performance. And he's like, it was the craziest thing. There was this girl in a wheelchair with her nipples clamps on them, and 2 other women, and then there was this guy with no pants on. It was crazy. So it was like, it's still talked about. And like, a comedian wanted to use the space because of that performance. It was just wild. But I did a performance piece called I'm going to forget the 3 Graces. Allegory of Spring. Allegory of Spring is based on the Three Graces by Raphael. And so it's three women who represented these characters that the female identity kind of latches onto throughout art history, you know, patience and grace and, you know, comfort, nurturing, all that type of stuff, you know, that jazz. And so it was three of us, and we came out. I was all in white, and they came out and undressed, starting with their feet first to kind of desexualize the form. And then they cut my dress for me. And then we had these spindles of Fruit Loops on the wall. We had one that was at 3 foot, one that was at 6 foot, one that was at 9 foot. And then once we were all undressed, we delivered this monologue. And then they went and started grabbing the spindles off the wall and attached them to my breast and attached them to their breast. And so you have this really beautiful, angular, colorful crescendo of light. And it's really, there are actually incredible pictures online of it. But you know, the whole idea was we were not allowed to talk to anyone in the audience. People had to come up and eat these spindles of Fruit Loops, obviously before COVID, and or they could crush them, but we could not move from our spots until all of the Fruit Loops were gone. And they were like, I'm not kidding you, 8 boxes of damn Fruit Loops.
Oh, dang.
8 boxes. And it was very slow, but this was an open air performance. So people from outside could come in. It was in downtown Atlanta. Our downtown's kind of dusty. It looks like an apocalyptic city. Everything else is happening outside of downtown. They're redoing that now. But people would just walk in from the streets. This guy walks in and he comes up and he gets in between all three of us and he's like looking at us and he's just kind of staring at us. And then he starts grabbing the spindles and pulling them and making our breast move.
Oh.
We're not doing anything. We're just sitting there. And, you know, we can't say anything. We know that this is off. We know it's off. And so he's like kind of moving around. He pulls his shirt up and then he takes his jacket off, then he pulls his shirt off. And, you know, he kind of looks at my friend, Sophia, who was part of the performance group Mother Girl from Chicago. They're Katie and Sophia are great, very professional. And he looks over at Sophia and kind of pinpoints her. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking in the back, and my friend Alex, he goes up to Morgan and is like, is anyone looking out for them? And Morgan goes, do you need help? She mouths it to me. And I was like, do you want him to leave? And at that point, she comes walking up. He's already dropped his pants, fully erect.
Oh. Fully
erect, yes. And there is a picture of my friend Sophia going like that. She's like, it was just so, but Morgan walks up, she's like, let's leave the performing to the performers and escorts him out. And the guy was obviously, I mean, he was someone that lived on the street. He was a drug addict. He was high. Afterwards, though, people just rushed to us, and those Fruit Loops started flying off like confetti. They were like, we got to get them off of this walls because they're obviously not moving. So you just see all these shards of like Fruit Loops flying everywhere. The floor is covered. And then we pull ourselves off the wall. We don't disconnect. We pull ourselves off the wall and we leave the space. And then afterwards, we kind of look at each other and we're like, yes, that happened. And then I go, I feel like we should give that guy a tip.
Oh, oh my gosh, that's insane.
Is crazy. Oh my goodness.
It was definitely one of those moments where it's like, oh, okay.
Well, and it's so interesting that you have like elements that come into your performance that kind of challenge you as a performer of like, are you going to react or are you going to not? And that is very interesting as a fellow performer to get in your headspace to like, I don't know what I would do if some man came and dropped his drawers, and that's crazy.
It was definitely one of those moments. It was like, okay, all right, I don't know what to do with this, but I guess we're doing this. I really like I said, I love to make people feel uncomfortable, because there's nothing wrong with being uncomfortable. I spend, I would say, easily 98% of my day uncomfortable. Sitting in a wheelchair, it's not comfortable. Having a wedgie for 6 hours that you can't remove is not comfortable. Having to go to the bathroom and no one to help you, it's not comfortable. So if I can be uncomfortable in my life, you can handle my performances for maybe 3 to 5 hours. You can handle the uncomfortable nature because you come out stronger in the end. I'm giving you the ability to learn and to realize your own value and also the value of others, to educate yourself, to be receptive of being educated, to learning from my position rather than judging from yours. That was good. I should write that down. For me, I will also make myself uncomfortable because sometimes it's really hard to kind of stay in position. I don't think anyone understands, like when I was younger and I was an undergrad, I didn't even think about performance. It's like, oh, that's stupid. I didn't know anything about it until I started doing it, much through the the guidance of my mentors in grad school. They're like, you really need to look into performance because there's something about you that people want to know. So let them know. And then I got into performance and I was like, wow. And performance in a way kind of saved my creative life, to be honest with you. But the nature of my disability, it robs me of my muscles. Each year, even with me being on $1 million treatment, which is ridiculous, that I obviously don't pay for because I'm broke as hell all the time. I'm able to maintain what I have, but performance gave me a voice that visual arts could not. It was always kind of nice to draw something and someone would look at my drawing and look at me and be like, you did that? It's like, yeah, imagine what else I could do, and then, performance gave me a way of just being me, being okay with me, identifying as myself, not trying to jump through the hoops of normalcy while having a 250 to 450 pound object of necessity strapped to my back. It gave me a way to feel free, even though I was weighted. I don't know. I kind of got off on a little tangent there, but being uncomfortable is where I was going with that. I make myself uncomfortable even more so in my performances because it's hard to sit still. Like when you have constant leg pressure or back pain, it's really hard to sit still. So I don't think that people understand, even though I'm just sitting here, that takes a lot out of you just to sit here and suffer in silence and live and drown in that uncomfortableness. To deny yourself the benefit of the assisted technology to make yourself comfortable in a performance setting just adds to the emotional turmoil that goes unknown to the audience unless I allow them to know that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. You kind of talked about it a little bit, but let's dive into it a little bit more. And I'll do this fast because someone's like, I keep muting myself because someone's like hammering something upstairs. But you talked about being classically trained. So let's talk about you starting being classically trained and what kind of material you used, what kind of art you did. For someone that has no idea or hasn't seen any of your your sketches and things like that, because on Instagram it's hard to find any of your drawings. I think you have a little bit of like a small part of it, but you can find a lot more drawings on your website. You have a really cool one with the balloons.
Yeah, I did a series of balloons because balloons for me are a symbol of strength and reality. Like as a child, and unabashed hope and realizations. As a child, when you get a balloon, you love it. You hold on to it. You cry if it flies away. It's shiny. It makes noises. It floats. It can pop. But you as a child hold on to that string and let that balloon wave in the wind and shine and sparkle in the light. and then you let it go, and you have this illusion that it's going to go and go and go and go and go forever, and it will forever be that shiny circular object of freedom and flight. And as you get older, you realize the balloon, eventually it loses that shine. It dissolves in the sun, and it pops and falls to the earth. And that's kind of like what we do as people. So I love the surrogacy of the balloon. When you asked me about being classically trained, I was classically trained because my mentor in undergrad is a wonderful fine artist named Joseph Remillard. You should look him up. He is what I would consider Joseph a hyper-realist artist. I was self-taught, and I was always like the best drawer in school, grammar school, middle school, high school. I was always the best drawer, but then I kind of like lost my way. I didn't get into the college I wanted. I was stuck at a theater school. All I did was hang out with like people that were just not good for me. I wanted to fit in, so I was always drinking and smoking pot and just doing stuff. Not that I think there's anything wrong with that. Pot is great for medicinal purposes. But I was kind of like lost. I was trying to fit in, and when you're someone that tries to fit in without realizing you were meant to stand out, you actually start to lose the ability to stand out by just trying to fit in. And I lost myself, and like I had this like total breakdown, and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I'd been denied transfer, and I wasn't going to take no for an answer. I think I'd gone through the motions and taken no as an answer too many times. So I grabbed all of my drawings I'd done in my home over the past few years, put them in this old portfolio, and I took them to the department head, or the dean of students for Kennesaw State University. And I was like, look, my background, it says I am a horrible student, and I am, but I've been doing something I haven't been wanting to do, and this is what I want to do. Give me a chance. So he let me in on academic probation, and I actually graduated as top senior in the visual arts department.
Oh, wow.
4 years later. And during that 4-year time period, I moved out on my own. I've been on my own since I was 22 years old. Now my parents were like, what are you going to do if something happens to us? I'm like, well, damn, I have no idea. So I guess I better learn what I want to do. So during that time, I moved out on my own, and I learned from great teachers like Joseph Remillard at Kennesaw State University. And Kennesaw State University has a wonderful program. It's really set in a traditional sense, where you learn traditional mediums, traditional surfaces. You learn, you are just really taught a lot about art history. I'm amazed I can even remember some of the stuff that I remember, just randomly remember. So when I went to Georgia State for grad school, they were more conceptual, and that's where I got into the performance. I do draw, I do paint. I can really actually do anything. I know how to do it. My body allowing me to do it is the other question. I've even done wood sculptures. My fingers hated me for it. I have many scars, but I did it. So that's, I guess, what I mean by classically trained. Is like I've been trained in traditional sense, like academically, kind of educated through old world techniques, things like absorbent grounds and silver point, old school mediums. I know how to like mix my own pigments and all that stuff. I don't do it anymore, mainly because it's not me doing it, it's me telling other people what to do, and I hate that. I have to do that enough just to get up and go to the bathroom. It's like, I don't want to do that in my professional life. I just want to do me. Just do me.
I love that you said it earlier, that you found performance as the outlet for you for your art, and it gave you like not a second chance, but like that's how you are using your creative concepts.
It did give me a second chance. It gave me a second chance of recreating the visual to the world in a way that is not traditional. or not traditionally accepted visually by those who are not practitioners of performance, or those who are not historians of performance. Performance is relatively new, but also at the same time not. I think performance art in the sense of, if you compare Shakespeare actors, those are performers, to people like Bob Flanagan. The juxtapositioning is otherworldly. And y'all know Bob Flanagan?
I don't know.
Bob Flanagan is no longer with us. Bob Flanagan died about 15 years ago, I want to say. His partner still lives, I think, in LA. Her name is Cherie Rose. Bob Flanagan was known as the super masochist. He was the oldest living male with cystic fibrosis. He attributed his ability to live as long as he did through his performance practice, which was basically indulging in the sadomasochistic lifestyle as a way to find some meaning behind the unwanted beatings that were related to his disease versus the ones that he welcomed through his partnership with Cherie. So he did things like he nailed his penis to a board as part of a performance. He would hang upside down and be beaten down his back, which is a form of percussion coughing, which is something that you do to relieve the lungs of the mucus that builds in the walls with cystic fibrosis. But he was a beautiful performance artist. He really put himself out there. And he kind of dived head first in and inspired me in a way to allow myself to be seen, truly seen, not just allowing people to see parts, but Bob Flanagan would sit there with a catheter hanging off, wearing a diaper or a pair of pants that you could see the catheter hanging from, all of his scars from the many treatments that he had, wearing a breathing apparatus with a Superman cape on, and he would talk about sex and performance and being beaten and all of this stuff, and how he would get erect from just having his back beaten from coughing and stuff like that. Just random, just beautiful, kind of really telling it from another perspective. It was just enchanting. He was enchanting. You should look him up. It's fantastic. His partner, Bob let me see, died about 15 years ago. So Cherie Rose actually has worked with another artist with cystic fibrosis named Martin O'Ryan. I think Martin's in London now, but he also does the same type of work that Bob Flanagan did. So I follow performance artists that are also in my own community, as well as in the, outside the disabled community performance artists. I do that because I really want to, I think we need to stomp elitism in the art world so that everybody can exist. I really hate seeing the same artists get the same things over and over and over. I'm happy for them, but at the same time, it's there are more people that are more need of things, and there's enough for everybody. And we got to stop. If we're going to exist into a creative future, we got to stop burning those bridges as we're climbing them. It's like people walk up the bridge and then they light it and let anyone else get up. It's not going to work that way. It can't work that way. We won't exist. I don't know about you, but I want to be an artist that I'm in a history book. That's what I'm going for.
Same. Yep. Which is why you're doing interesting work. Because I know so many artists that don't do interesting work. I'm like, do something interesting. You're not going to get in the history books doing what everyone's doing. And you're so unique and different that your work makes me excited. So
thank you.
Agreed.
Your work makes me excited. It does. I like to have followed you for years. Without having read some of your work information, my first take on your work is just the juxtapositioning between what people see on the outside with this beautiful young woman with these eyes that sparkle and a smile, but there's so much more beyond that facade. And I like how you've taken your understanding of the three-dimensional world and you've made this amalgam of the three-dimensional world with the performance world, with this poetic world that is inside of you. If that's, I mean, if I'm wrong, correct me.
No, I think I'm gonna write that down and put it on my website. It's beautiful. Much better than how I would say it. So
Just
well,
have Jessica rewrite your whole
I think
website.
sometimes that's the best way to have an artist statement, is having other people write what they're actually seeing within your work.
The best way to write an artist statement is just to start damn talking. Just
Yeah.
start talking and record yourself. Like some of the things I say, I don't remember saying them, and then people will document them or publish them, and they're like, damn, I sound insightful. Like, and I'm like, I am like the type of person, like I can't do math. Like it is the funniest thing in the world. I cannot do math. If you give me a fraction, I will start breaking out in hives and I will cry. My friend thinks it's the funniest thing in the world because he knows me so well. He knows that my two fears in life are fractions and Teddy Ruxpin. So he told me one year he was going to get me a Teddy Ruxpin that asked me fractions for Christmas. I'm like,
Oh
if
my
you do that, the friendship will be over, bro.
I can't do math either. Fractions and percentages. Like
I think of
what?
pie. I think of pie or pizza, which is really funny because I'm fat. So I'm like, pie. Let me think. How much pie can I give you and still have a fourth for myself?
Well, I think before we talk way too much, we should end on pie and fractions.
So Jessica, where's a great place for, you already talked about Instagram, just throw your Instagram out again, because this is our plug section.
Yeah, it's Willie_and_artist, as in I'm Willie an artist, like wheelchair an artist, Willie an artist. I also have another Instagram that I can't even remember, but I think it's daftgirl79, which stands for disabled as, you know, expletive. I'm trying to mind my words because I don't know, like, if I can cuss.
Oh no, we're free. You could.
Okay, well,
we're adults.
It means disabled as fuck because I'm disabled as fuck. So, but I don't really get on that, but that has some of my work on it. I mean, you can Google me. That sounds so pretentious. Google me, but you can Google me, and there's a lot of stuff that you'll find. I've also stuck it to the man a couple of times. You might find some lawsuits, and they're like, "Yeah, you're not accessible, buddy, and fix it." And you don't. Well, that's your problem. So yeah, you can Google me and you will find, I tell my students, if you Google me, just be ready. Just
be ready.
Be ready. It took me 6 months, or no, 3 months preparation before I taught that 1 year of middle school to make sure that none of my students, when they Googled me, would find a picture of Miss Blinkhorn's tatas or cuckoo. Like that cannot happen. No. But now it's all over. So oddly enough, I tell guys the same thing in my dating profiles. If you want to see more of me, just Google me.
I love it.
Samuel, do you have any plugs?
Do I? Yes. The swim lesson book for Mommy Teach Me How to Swim is coming out pretty soon. If you want more information, you can follow Cooksy Swim anywhere. We're on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, even the website. So that should be coming out the end of this month, which is January, and along with the audiobook. And then from there, if you want more information about teaching your own child how to swim, we're going to start doing our online course. So just there's a bunch of information out there. If you're interested, just go to cooksyswim.com. That's COOKSEY swim.com, and you can find all that information.
Oh, one last thing, Catherine, I don't know if you guys noticed, I may have told you this when I saw you at Art Basel, but I met you at Art Basel. But I have officially been named the curator for Art in Odd Places 2022. Story is the name of the show this year, Story. And, so if you're a performance artist or an installation artist and you're interested in performing in New York, I will be putting a call out for artists very soon. And I'm looking forward to creating a beautiful show that celebrates all communities. It's highly, highly, highly inclusive.
That's
But
really exciting.
Mhm.
So I hope, maybe you can come up with a proposal and toss it that way and like get your friends too. I really want to make a great show that is a beautiful mosaic of what the world has to offer as far as the performance, visual art world,
When is that show scheduled, or is it kind of up in the air?
We are shooting for spring, or not spring, sorry, fall. Spring was the last time I was in it. We are shooting for fall, like late summer, early fall in New York. I do want to have artists with disabilities feel like they are, I want them to be included, because Art in Odd Places made me feel so included as well when I first started getting involved with Art in Odd Places, which was started by Ed Woodham, who was an Atlanta native actually. And so for me, I want other artists with disabilities to be given the opportunity to showcase their work as well. So I was like, as an artist with disability, I don't like to perform in the hot and I don't like to perform in the cold. So maybe hitting that little space between the two seasons in New York will be right. Because the first time I performed in New York, it was 43 degrees outside. I was topless. And I did not know that you could park over the street vent to stay warm. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's cold. I don't like to perform in the cold either. So fall in New York is a beautiful time.
Yeah. All right, well, it was great talking with you. Thank you for having me on. I was excited about this. Obviously, I put on my full face and leather, so.
No, thank you so much for talking to us. We were really excited to have you on.
I'm hoping that this year I can make it out to the West Coast, because I would really love to juxtapose Reverence We Three into an area of privilege to get people to stop and think. So if people want to help me get to the West Coast, I do have a GoFundMe that you can link to in the podcast information. And I guess afterwards, it's on my, I think it's on, I can send it to you. I don't know.
I think you have it on your Instagram.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So that's just where, if anyone wants to donate to make sure that Reverence We Three, seen throughout the United States, they can make a donation and it goes towards the performance costs.
And I think you had mentioned earlier that you were thinking about Santa Monica Pier.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Santa Monica. And then I really want to do Joshua Tree just because I love the desert. I love it.
Well, yeah, let us know, and I will be putting up those links so when people are listening to the podcast, they can visit all the different things that you're doing and follow you, because it's always a good thing too. And
I hope that you can join us for the it's a Art in Odd Places catalog. We're having a conversation over Then and Now, and it's happening January 15th. That is on my Facebook if you want to join that, look at that. We'll be talking about Art in Odd Places just in general, then and now and what have you.
Very cool. And I'm assuming it's virtual.
Absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, it's virtual. There's going to be a lot of really cool performance artists that are talking, and Quinn is actually the moderator. So.
Oh, nice. Okay. Wonderful. Well, I will check that out and I'll promote it too. Thank you again. Thank you everyone for listening. If you want to keep up to date on our podcast, always check out our Instagram, Miss Art World. We also have everything up on our website, missartworld.com. And if you want to see us in person, I guess not in person. I guess in person. I don't know. If you want to see us talking to each other, you can go on our YouTube channel, Miss Art World, and see us talking to each other in little boxes and see Jessica's beautiful makeup, because I am digging that lipstick.
Thank you. I used to wear this lipstick when I was 13 years old, and my dad would chase me out of the household, and he'd be screaming, "Elaine Blinkhorn, your mouth looks like a butthole. Come here."
Well, I think it looks really good. So
Thank you. I think I'm rocking the goth today.
you are.
And my eyebrows, I have to say for the viewers, are fierce today. You guys got a good brow day. Some people are like, who does your brows? I'm like, I do. I'm not $150,000 in student loan debt and not able to draw a pair of brows. Best believe these things could look like they were hopping off my face.
No, they do look great. Well, thank you again. Thank you, Samuel. And we will be back in 2 weeks with more podcasts.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.